Hey, this is Nicole Kelly, host of Disarming Disability. Thanks for listening to the following show on Public House Media.
Hey everybody, it's Selena and you are listening to Stories from Planet Earth. We are sitting here today with my good friend Armon.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Thank you so much for taking some time to be on the podcast.
Yeah, of course. I'm so glad you asked me to be on it.
Yeah, definitely. So, a little background. Armon and I have known each other since our freshman year of college.
Yep,
and
freshman year.
My first interaction with Armon was in his hall. He was in the same dorms as me, and he was taped up against his dorm hall wall, and that was like my very first interaction with him.
Was that the first time we met, really?
I'm pretty sure that's the first time we met, because I remember thinking, dang, that kid likes to party. So, I don't think I knew you. That was, the first time we'd met. Well, I don't even know if we really met, but that was my first memory of you.
That's hilarious. I mean, I remember that time vividly, but...
Yeah, what led up to that? I don't really know if I got the full story.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as exciting of a story as you might think. I think someone had suggested or had seen on a YouTube video that you can tape someone to a wall, and I volunteered.
Of course you did.
And then our RA saw it and was like, no, you gotta take him down. And I was like, no, it's voluntary. It wasn't bullying.
That'd be pretty wild if it was like they forcibly taped you to the wall.
I had too big of a smile to feel like it was forcibly done.
I know, you were too excited about it. I remember that particularly. I was like, this kid is willingly letting them tape him up against a wall. This is the most college thing that I could stumble upon.
Pretty early, I'm sure, too.
Yeah, that had to have been the first 2 or 3 weeks.
Crazy.
Yeah. Good times. It feels like not that long ago and also a lifetime ago.
No kidding.
But yeah, we've been friends ever since. I mean, we kind of started off enemies, but...
year prior. Your year after.
Yeah. We grew to like each other after we got over our animosities.
Exactly.
And that's all that matters.
Absolutely.
So, what was the decision like to come to Colorado State University? Because you're from...
Wichita, Kansas, not New Mexico, as you previously thought. Well, I was born and raised in Wichita, Kansas. Lived there for 18 years, and I always wanted to move to Colorado. I mean, my parents and I grew up making trips out to Colorado in the summer and winter to hike and camp and ski, and I just loved that outdoor lifestyle and the beauty of Colorado. And there really isn't much in Kansas, to offer. And as I've moved out years since, I've come to appreciate the simple life of Kansas. But I always wanted to go, and I applied to a bunch of schools all over. And I remember taking a campus tour, and it's so cliche, but that everyone says it, but somehow it's true that you get there and it just feels right. And I ended up falling in love with Fort Collins, and CSU was amazing experience. I mean, I met so many awesome people, Selena especially, and it was just a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. Fort Collins is just, I always tell this to people that have never been there, but it's just like this magical little bubble.
Yeah.
where everything is just so, I don't know, everybody's so nice and there's craft beer everywhere. It's just this surreal experience to get to go to college there. And, you know, you just meet some of the best people in that city and at CSU.
Yeah, it's a special little town, that's for sure.
Yeah. So what did you study in school?
I studied mechanical engineering.
And how did you like that?
Which year? No, so I remember hating it at the beginning. First probably 4 semesters. Oh, I struggled really bad. It was tough. It was really hard transition, you know, from high school, and I learned to love it. I got much better at studying, I think, and it's just kind of something I think that took time, and once I did, I grew to love what I was learning, and I had amazing professors, which not a lot of people I think can say, so I was very lucky in that regard. It was just, the knowledge I learned from my undergraduate studies, I think was pretty close to second to none. And not just the material, but how to think, I think was probably the biggest thing. They give you problems and you have to analyze it and critically think about it and find your solution. So it was great, honestly.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. And so you graduated and then you decided to move to Aspen.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that decision and what drew you to move to a mountain town.
Well, it wasn't planned whatsoever. Like many, I graduated without any job prospects. Entire senior year, I was applying for jobs. I went to all the career fairs and got 100 rejection letters and, didn't have a job as I graduated. I spent my summer traveling a little bit, spending time with family, and in the summer I found a job posting for Aspen Ski Company, and I thought, wow, that's pretty unique. I'd love to go out that direction. I've never been to Aspen. I hear crazy things about this place, so I was like, let's give it a try. I can be a ski bum for a winter and pursue engineering later, or, a quote unquote real career after that. And so I was actually on vacation with my family in Branson, Missouri, at Table Rock Lake, when I applied for the job and got a call and started that process. And that was second week of July. And by the time I got back to Fort Collins, I had all but accepted the job and moved out. And August 1st, I moved from Fort Collins to Aspen and been here since.
And right off the bat, what were the major differences from moving from a city on the Front Range to a city very much in the mountains?
Yeah, well, for those of you that don't know, Aspen is kind of in the middle of nowhere, right in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. It is, to get here, you have to try to get here. It's not, you just stumble upon it, you really have to take I-70 to Glenwood and then go down 82 and get there, or in the summer, Independence Pass, and that's the direction I came. So it was about a 4.5-hour drive from Fort Collins, and the drive on Independence Pass was breathtaking. I stopped at the Continental Divide. I, was driving through the forests of the aspen trees, and, I was nervous, of course, on my drive, but as soon as I got to the area, I was like, wow, this is this is something else. The views, and it's amazing. And the biggest difference from, mountain town to town on the Front Range is there's nothing here. I mean, Fort Collins is a town, but I'd call it a city now, and Aspen is not. I mean, there's no Walmart, there's no Target, nothing like that. That's an hour drive away, and the only clothing stores you have here are like Louis and Gucci, and, all of those that I'm certainly not going to be able to shop at. So there are a lot of differences. I think that you can't compare a city like Aspen to many others, regardless if it's in Colorado or in the world.
When I think of Aspen, I think of a very opulent place, and it's where you go to snowboard, it's where you go to ski, and it's one of the higher end places. Am I right?
Yeah, that's probably an understatement. I would say it's the highest end.
Yeah, yeah.
In
So
Colorado, I mean, I've skied, a lot of the resorts here in Colorado. Vail is probably the closest, as far as high end goes. They cater to that sort of customer that travels all over the world. But man, Aspen is it's another couple steps above that. It really is kind of crazy how much money is here, and that was the biggest shock, I think, when I moved here, and kind of understanding and realizing, who comes here, who lives here, who visits, and they are the wealthiest people in the world, honestly.
right, yeah. It's just so bizarre to me to think that a place that caters to that type of customer, that there's not a Target nearby. I don't know why that just kind of doesn't really register with me, that it's this getaway mountain town and the people that live there can't go to Target because it's an hour away.
I think it's less, done by on purpose, that, they don't want to see a Target here. And I'm sure that is part of it, that there are those people that fly into the private airport and, have their private jets and their private pilots and all that, and they wouldn't want to see a Target. But also there isn't any room. I mean, there's, you'd have to put it on the side of a mountain to have a store as big as Target. I mean, we have a city market, which is, Fort Collins is King Soopers and, the nation's Kroger, and it's tiny. I mean, this thing is so small. The aisles are so close together, and, they just don't have room for that sort of thing. So you have to drive an hour to get to Target and Walmart and Ross and all those stores.
Right. I think that's not dissimilar to a lot of mountain towns, I suppose, that it's where you go to ski and snowboard. So, like, what's the need for a Target in the middle of that environment? But it does, like, I'm new to the snowboarding scene, so it's just so, it's different than I thought it would be. These little towns, they're almost like amusement parks in a way, because it's just so targeted towards entertainment and recreation. And it's almost like a caricature of a town. Does that make sense?
I think that's a really great way to describe it, as an amusement park, because you really have such a, like you said, targeted environment. I mean, people don't come here to, do nothing. Like, it's not like you're going to the beach and you're sitting on the beach for 5 hours and you're getting a tan and, doing nothing but maybe getting drunk on the beach. Here, I mean, summer, winter, there you are here and you're doing something. You are wintertime skiing, snowboarding, snowshoeing, snowmobiling, snow this, snow that. There's really endless things to do in the winter, and then summer there are even more. I mean, I don't know if it's the most gorgeous place in the world, but it's probably the most gorgeous place that I've seen.
Yeah. So what is it like? You're living in this environment that's so targeted towards people staying and leaving, but you're living there full time. So what is that like?
That's a great question. So that is probably the biggest problem with this valley is housing. I'm lucky enough to have employee housing, so I can actually afford to live here. But if you don't have employee housing, I mean, it's about $2,000, $2,500 a month for a studio apartment.
Oh my God.
And it's ridiculous. That's the low end too. That's really the lowest end. And then you go on, Zillow or apartments.com, and you're looking at listings, and they have a 5-bedroom house for rent for $40,000 a month or something like that, like ridiculous. And it's difficult in that regard, people that come seasonally, which is the majority of people, I would say, the population grows in the wintertime probably 2 or 3-fold, and they're all stuffed into employee housing, and but they're here for 6 months and then they go home. So it's definitely tough a little bit to be sustainable. You have to be smart, I guess. There are a lot of people that come here and they're just here to party, and they're here to have fun, and which is great. That's what they chose, and they're not really looking to stay here forever. Maybe they are, but you can't save too much money living out here, and especially if you don't have employee housing. So it can be difficult.
Yeah, I could imagine. So I just cannot even imagine trying to find housing in that town. That's just got to be near impossible, especially for a seasonal worker.
Well, and that's the thing is if you're a seasonal worker, you have to get housing through your employer. You get with your employer, and you say, hey, I can't, if you want me to move here, you have to find me housing. And it's interesting. I mean, I've had a lot of luck, more or less, with housing. I've always been able to have employee housing. But I know some people that come for the season and they're sleeping 5 or 6 people in a 2-bedroom place, and that's employee housing, and they're all splitting the rent. And, I can imagine how tough that would be. Think of a sorority house with 2 rooms with 8 people or something. It'd be tough.
Yeah, totally. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what your job is in Aspen?
Okay, yeah. So I work for Aspen Ski Company, but more specifically, I work for the Limelight Hotel, which is owned by the ski company. I moved here as a engineering maintenance 1 tech. So nothing spectacular at all. It's just general maintenance, really, around a hotel. Since then, I have been promoted, and I'm the engineering manager for one of the properties, the Limelight Hotel in Snowmass. And it's a very interesting role, dealing with such a wide range of problems. It's pretty much building maintenance, but it's a lot more than that. It's managing, experience and financial. So like I'm in charge of the budget and sending and coding invoices to AP and that sort of thing. So it's not really a very glamorous job, I would say, but I'm very happy with the skills that I've been learning and continue to learn, and it's a very, very interesting experience and a unique experience, especially for where I'm at. So I feel very lucky to have this position, and especially my employer. I mean, a lot of people can't say they enjoy who they work for, and I'm quite proud actually to say that I work for Aspen Ski Company. They're a very very forward-thinking company. Big focus on environmental consciousness and sustainability, and a lot of looking to the future type of thing. So they're a very good company, honestly.
That's awesome. So, what is it like being a dude in his 20s living in a mountain town? I'm sure a lot of the entertainment in the winter is obviously winter sports. But other than that, what do you do for entertainment?
Well, I work a fair amount. A lot of people that are here, they have kind of not set schedules. They could be working like 1 to 9 a few days a week, and then like 8 to 4 another day. So it gives them a lot of time to, if they work an evening shift, it gives them a lot of time to do stuff in the morning. I'm working, the throughout the day, really. So I'm busy 5 days a week at work mostly. But then on my weekends, wintertime, it's, you're on the mountain. If you're not on the mountain, people look at you like, what are you doing? So it's really special place for that. But it gets tiring. I mean, you would think how amazing it is to ski 50, 60, 70, some people over 100 days a year. But you don't realize quite how tiring that is and how exhausting on your body it is, because you're going 4 days a week every week for 6 months, and that takes a toll on someone's body, and you really do get in some amazing shape. And but other things I do to entertain myself, hiking in the summertime. I was last summer was my first full summer I was here, and so I spent a lot of time just exploring, mostly by myself too. So I've always enjoyed, the outdoors, and I'll listen to music, enjoy the sun, and find these new places that I've never seen before. And it's a surreal feeling, I think, when you realize you're out in the middle of nowhere, and there really is no one else there, and maybe I'll see one person on the trail if it's not a crowded trail. So it's been it's very easy to find stuff to entertain you. And then nightlife, of course, is a big one. Obviously not during these times, but in normal times, going out to Aspen at night is a huge scene. I mean, it's pretty wild, going out at night, and I love going out to the bars with you and everybody in Fort Collins, and that was really fun. But it's definitely a different scene, college town versus resort town. So
yeah, I could imagine. So what are the differences? Older crowd, I'm sure.
What was that?
Older crowd, I'm sure.
Definitely older crowd at times. You could go into a club at 11 at night and see people in their 40s and 50s, and they've got bottle service and VIP tables, and they're there in their Ed Hardy shirts and jeans and trying to stay young. And so that's definitely a big thing. I'd say the biggest difference is cost. I mean, we would go out in Fort Collins and pay nothing for a night out, and you get as many drinks as you want. If you get a drink here for $12, you're doing all right. It's
Wow.
$10, $15, $20 for some drinks. And so that's a big thing for sure. You spend way more money. The clubs, so I'm comparing the clubs here to like Rec Room in Fort Collins. So
pretty low bar to hurdle.
Right, really, yeah, if you just step over it, you're fine. And here they're sticky floors and everything, but they've got really cool atmosphere in the clubs. I mean, really nice like DJ tables usually. Some of them have like stripper poles in the middle of the clubs and
for public use or for professionals.
Totally. No public use. Well, actually, and then some clubs have I guess like go-go dancers. They have like girls that do bottle service, and then they'll just dance around and try to get people to buy $300 bottles probably, and then they get in this little tube and they dance around. And I mean, it's interesting. I don't think we have clubs like that in Fort Collins.
Oh, absolutely not.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, that's funny. So you mentioned before how ritzy the crowd there is. I'm curious what the craziest either celebrities you've seen or just shows of insane wealth you've seen since you've worked there.
Yeah, so I haven't seen too many celebrities or famous people, but I'll tell you my first story of it. I had just moved here from Fort Collins, maybe 6 weeks or so, maybe 2 months, I don't know. And I go to a bar in town. I just walked there from my apartment, and I wanted to watch the CSU football game. And so I'm sitting at the bar, eating some food, drinking some beer, and watching the game. And I look over and I see a very large gentleman escorting another gentleman wearing a hoodie with Strange Music logo on it. And I have tickets to the concert venue Belly Up that night to see Tech Nine. And I look over and I see that. I'm like, oh, they're probably going to the concert tonight. That's cool. They sit down and the hostess walks away, and I look over. I'm like, oh, just kidding. That is Tech Nine. He is the concert. So very casual. No one in the bar really knew who he was. I think the bartender did. But I had a gentleman sitting next to me from like Virginia or something, and I'm like staring at this guy, and he's like, what, who is that? And I was like, that's the guy who's going to be performing at Belly Up tonight. He's like, oh, that's cool. He finishes his meal and goes outside, and I'm done watching the game, and the guy next to me, he goes outside to smoke a cigarette, and he comes back and he's like, hey, we're all just kind of like hanging out outside if you want to come. And I was like, with Tech Nine? He's like, yeah. I'm like, of course I want to. So I go out there, and they're just sitting in the middle of Aspen pretty much at an outdoor seating table, and he's drinking and talking with these two people I just met, and I'm standing around and listening and talking with them a little bit, and it was the coolest experience. I'd been there for not even 2 months, I think, and here I am talking with one of the most well-known rappers, and it was crazy. So I didn't want to spend too much time there and be all annoying or anything to him. So I was leaving, and I was like, before I go, like, can I get a picture? He goes, of course. I sat next to him and, like, shook his hand. He threw up, like, a peace sign, and he was just the nicest guy. He was so cool, so down to earth, and that was my coolest experience, I think, meeting someone here.
Yeah. That's got to be so surreal.
It was. I remember walking home after that with the biggest smile on my face, and I just couldn't contain it. I texted everybody I knew right away and sent them the picture.
Yeah, so you're going to have to send me that picture again so I can share it along with the promotion for this episode.
Okay, I'll send it to you after this. I'll send it to you again.
Sweet, thank you.
Other kind of, I guess, examples of wealth or celebrity interactions I have are, I know this condo building that was next to where I worked in Aspen, and my boss was telling me how much these were selling for, and one of them, it was like the lowest end, was selling for, I think, $22 million.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, I went inside some of these because my work managed that property, so I was, going in there to fix stuff if need be. And they're beautiful condos, but they're maybe like 3 bedroom, 3 bath with, I don't know, 3,000 square feet. And you're in a condo building, and they're trying to sell it for $22 million.
That is wild.
I mean, I'm a little more, I don't know, jaded or used to it now. Just because it's been so long, but it's still like
that is
unfathomable.
That is a gross amount of money, like for such a small place too. That's just mind blowing. And
more than that, the people that own these are there for, 2 weeks out of the year, a month out of the year. I mean, they are not using these things. That is not their primary residence. They have who knows how many properties around the world. And how many of them are multi-million-dollar properties, So it's really kind of incredible, and and it's something else, You don't. I still don't understand how people have that type of money, and that's what they decide to do with it,
Right. That's so out of my scope of reality that I cannot accept it as reality because that is so bizarre.
Yep.
But you live amongst that. That is just the most mind-boggling part to me. You get to interact with that world.
Well, and
without being in it,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am one of the people, like most that are here, that they're the caterers. They're not being catered to, And I had a kind of a predisposition before I came out here that, well, I know it's a very expensive area, and I know, all the rich people and celebrities come out here, so everyone's probably going to be a dick, right? And that was not my experience, actually. I was, very happy to find out that most of my interactions with people were very positive. People were very nice, down to earth. And of course you get those people that, want everything done yesterday and anything you do isn't right, but that's a very small minority, I must say. So it was a cool experience to be wrong about that.
Yeah, that is good to hear. I'm glad. So shifting gears a little bit, I wanted to talk about just the impact that COVID has had on mountain towns and recreation. Because it hit like right before the end of the ski and snowboarding season.
Yeah, that's right. So, I think Governor Polis had an executive order to close all ski resorts immediately. I want to say March 25th or something like that, March 23rd, something around that time. That was kind of when, everything in the country kind of came to a halt. And the resorts they were scheduled to close like April 19th or something like that. So we had a full, pretty much, well, maybe not full hotel, but I work at a hotel, by the way. And the occupancy was quite high in the weeks leading up to this, because we were in full swing of spring skiing, spring break and everything. And that's historically when we get more or less most of the snow. And it was interesting because we had to basically kick out all of the people that were here and cancel all of the upcoming reservations and, take pretty drastic measures right away. And I mean, everything really did shut down in a matter of days. I remember talking about the steps we're taking to, be cautious about, our guest interactions and day-to-day activity, like no more shaking hands. But no one was wearing a mask yet. No one was standing 6 feet apart yet. That wasn't common, that hadn't been introduced into like our society, I guess. And all of that turned around in about a week. The biggest impact I can think of probably is all of the seasonal workers. So it's kind of interesting. I would say well over the majority of the seasonal workers that come here come on a J1 visa. So they are students studying in college in another country, majority probably from South America. So we get a lot of Argentinians, Brazilians, Peruvians, Chileans, and some European people as well. But we have a lot of people that come for the season. In South America, it's their summer. So they come for their summer, live here for 6 months, go back and, continue school. I had a pretty good friend that was working here with me who is from Argentina. And he, we were still open and everything. And the president of Argentina puts out an executive order and says every Argentinian citizen has until Monday to get back into the country, or they will not be allowed. And this was like a Thursday, or Friday that they made this announcement. So my friend was like, he had no idea what to do. And then that came out and he was like, oh, I have to leave. So there were so many employees that were here and so many people that they had to pack up and leave early, and this was a whole month or so before they were supposed to leave. So it was kind of sad from that regard, because you have all these people that, you expected another month of hanging out with and partying and, doing stuff with, that abruptly had to leave. So goodbyes were ended short, and it was just crazy. I'm sure, like everyone else, everyone had a similar but different experience with the craziness of COVID.
Yeah, definitely. And And looking forward, what are your goals for the future at this point? I know things are crazy with the COVID, but tentatively, what's your plan for the future?
Sure. So, for time being, I'm quite content. I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm still exploring, all of the wonderful places that this area has to offer. I've got great friends out here. So I'm pretty satisfied to be where I'm at. But at the same time, I'm never the type of person that wants to feel complacent. So I don't think my future is here in the long run. I like I said earlier, I studied mechanical engineering, and I use some of that, I would say, in my job, but I'm not at an engineering job really. So I think that getting a position, for an engineering firm would be my goal. What I would like to do, I don't know. I don't actually know. I think I'd have to try stuff out before I can say that this is what I want to do. But I see myself in the future probably moving back to the Fort Collins area, maybe Denver, just outside of Denver, if that'd be a little easier to get a job with. And I don't know. How about I come back in a year and we can reconvene?
Okay, sounds like a plan. Well, that's pretty much all I had for you. Thank you so much for being willing to hop on the podcast and chat with me for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that you asked me, and I always love talking with you, Selena, so thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Stories from Planet Earth. If you have some time, leave us a review, and be sure to subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts. Find us on Instagram at SFPE Podcasts. I'll talk to you next week.